Sam with Nexus Workshop. We're here looking at the prop controller, and we have our last tab of the configuration page that we're going to look at right now. This is the lighting tab. On this tab, the first thing we're going to look at is pixels. So the thing that you're going to see missing right here is DMX. We are going to have DMX at launch, but I'm still working on it a little bit, so I don't have it fully into the UI in a way that I'm ready to show off. But what I do have is the pixels, and pixels are super, super powerful. These sections, like all the others, are dynamic. So these only show up because I have a pixel string added. But here I've got my pixels. Here I have that pixel pin. I can't edit it here. That's edited on the connections page where I actually added the thing. I said, hey, on this pin, I'm going to put pixels. But here's where I can define the color order of those pixels and the gamma of those pixels. So I can change their brightness in ways or how their dimming curve works. These two things are where I set the global ones, but I can change them individually for each element. And that's the first concept we're going to talk about within pixels is elements. So with my pixels, I have a single pin that is driving a number of pixels. Within that number of pixels, I can break them out into logical elements. And that's going to be me saying that, yeah, I've got either physical things like a ring or a matrix or a literal strip of lights, or more logical things like, the way I have it grouped, I've got kind of like this constellation of nodes here and this here and these strips, and what makes sense for me how do I need to control it and break it down? Those are the types of things that you can add here. So you can add string, matrix, ring, or null. Null is going to be pixels that never light up, but there are applications for those. Either, hey, I had pixel string and these are literally covered. It was just how I got from point A to point B. Or null pixels that I'm using to reclock the signal. And when I do my video on pixels in general, I'll go into more detail about why you would want to do that and where that becomes really helpful. But I do have my pin, and then here's my elements. I do have a drop down here to select because I could have multiple pins of pixels if I do have like literal physical 2 pins out to different pixels because they're going different directions or something like that. Or just mass numbers because there's a limit to how many you can have. So I can choose which pixel pin I'm looking at, and it's going to give me all the elements I have for that. So right now I've got a strip. Let's add 2 rings to it. Here is the last place within the UI where you have a manual save. The reason you have a manual save here is because you're working very quickly here. And if I try to automatically save on you, it feels a little laggy. So when you do this save, it doesn't reboot the board. It doesn't take much. You just click save and it'll be done. But that is here. Or maybe it'll give me crap because I'm doing a video. Within here, I can, like I said, change the color order or the gamma for individual elements. So maybe I'm doing a bunch of stuff and my strips are all GRB, but my rings themselves are RGB, whatever. You can change that. I can reverse to say this strip goes backwards of what you would think. And I have this little test button here, this little play button, that is going to make that string go green, white, red, green, white, red. Because it's going green, white, red, you can actually deduce what color order it is and if it doesn't line up. If you don't see green, white, red, you see red, white, green, guess what? Your green and your red are flipped. You see blue, white, red, your blue and your green are flipped. You can tell based on what it lights which your color order for that element should be. And that's this test right here. Over on the connections page, you actually had test buttons for the string as a whole, the strip as a whole, the pin itself. But here's where you can test just that element. And this is also how you can very quickly test and see, like, hey, do I have the right number of pixels? Did it light up my whole thing? Do I need to go more or less? So if you didn't sit there and meticulously count how many pixels were on that strip as you put it into the prop, you have a little way to quickly kind of figure it out and play with it. Here's where I'm defining the size. How long are those things? I can give them names. I can also do things like make it a mirror of something else. So when I do that, it's not going to care about any other things. It's just going to be mirrored within it. So I can save on some resources later on. I can also take those and put them into a group. So my elements can be grouped. If I create this group, I'm going to call this group all pixels. I'm going to put these options in it. And then now I can see them here on this view. I'm going to click into this view so I can zoom out. And I'm going to put 1 ring over here and 1 ring right here. And there's my look. Reset my view. I can navigate around this. I can shift and click drag to pan around. I can zoom in and out with my mouse wheel, and then I can select things. I can select individual nodes. I can undo. I can click on a name to grab a whole thing. I can also click a node, click again, I double click in there, and then now I'm dragging the whole piece around. Whenever I have a whole piece, I can scale it and I can rotate it. A lot of fun can be had here, and we'll probably end up doing a whole thing about pixel mapping and pixel grouping later. The next section I have here is color palettes. Color palettes are reusable sets of color or colors that you will use in other things. So you have some built-in colors, it's like all the basic ones. You can also just do the color picker on everything. But if you're doing a lot of reusing of the same colors, I definitely suggest you set up a color palette, because now you can reference it, and because you're referencing it, you can go change it and it'll update everywhere. So if I have like, hey, here's the green that I'm using in all of my props and all of my places, all of my action triggers, whatever, I can have a green set up here that I can reference in other places. And now I can go, oh, that green is kind of bright. I could come in and just change that color, dim it down a little bit, make it a little more blue, make it, shift it, whatever I need to do. And all those things are automatically going to be updated. The other thing you can do is like I do here. I like doing this a lot, where I have a color palette that I've named reds. And I've got like a vibrant red, a light red, and a dark red. And I've put all those three things in. And I did the same thing with greens. And now when I go in, instead of just having it be on or having it pulse or anything like that, I can go and I can be like, hey, put a chase on it. Use my reds color palette, and it's going to chase those three across. So now I've got like a ring where I've got this motion happening of brighter and darker within that color. And it could also shift complete colors if I was like, hey, be within my beach color scheme. Or I can do like this, where I'm basically using it to play with brightness. But this can be a lot of fun. Pixel effects is where you can define an effect that you're going to keep reusing. There are these built-in effects. That's all these types. We're going to be adding to this all the time. But in here, I can basically take that type, define specific parameters to it, and save that. So instead of just wave, this is my wave, and I think it should be this fast in this thing and whatever. To test this, I can choose my test targets, and you'll notice that I can test at different levels. I can test the entire pin, I can test the group, I can test elements individually, and then I can change my scope. So what I could do is I could take my whole pin, and if I hit this test button right now, I've got my test color over here, which is white, but notice I can come down and pick my color palette that I had made. So I'm going to test it with my reds color palette, and I've got this wave effect on my whole pin. I click that button, and now I'm watching that wave effect on my whole pin. I can play with my parameters here, I can do my thing. But we talk about scope. So scope, I can do it at the group level, which is the default here. And what that means is that it's going to be grabbing that whole pin, and it's going to be treating it as one big grouping of pixels and doing the wave all across it. So if I were to have a wave or a chase or something, it's going from pixel 0 all the way to the last pixel, doing that wave across. If I then come in and I go scope by element, then it's going to be running that effect on each of those three elements that are making up that pin, that group. I could also come in and I could say all as one, which would actually be if I had multiple groups on here, that's where it would treat the entire pin as one thing. Or I can say as a single pixel, which is like literally pretend you were one light and just everybody do the same thing. You can also do those scopes when you recover effects or recall effects onto things. And you can use this in different ways to layer and stack and build really intense and very, very different effects very quickly. Really powerful pixel engine in this thing. Another thing just to mention right now, and we'll talk about it more later when we do some pixel mapping stuff, is when you do the pixel lighting action, one of the things you get is the ability to index. You have a scope and an index. Whatever you index to will be within your scope. So if I scope at the group level and I index 1, that's going to take the 1th element within that group. If I scope at an element and I hit an index, that's going to do the actual pixel of that element. And so you can get really granular with that. There are specific applications where that would come in handy on a puzzle for feedback or something like that. But you can build some very, very cool stuff. Sequences, I'm actually not going to touch today because that's really going to be more about DMX as we add that. And you're going to see as we add the DMX, we've got full support for fixture profiles using the open fixture library. So we can do things like movers, fog machines, little floods and all that stuff. It can handle things correctly. It can deal with gobo wheels or color mixing. It can do with color wheels. It can deal with all the things you expect it to do, coming from a real legitimate lighting background. That was the last page. We've gone through the whole interface. I'm excited to see some more stuff. Next, I'm going to start making some videos about individual props and how we actually are doing them with demos. And we look forward to seeing you. If you have any questions, any comments, we love to talk about this stuff. Let's see you on the next one.